The United States is entering into a near emergency level caregiver shortage crisis. And this is not news to the disability community. It has been a constant reality that affects all aspects of day-to-day life for many families. Today, we begin part one of a two-part series that will provide a glimpse into caregiving. So this is our first episode, and then next week will be episode 2. So today, we're going to examine the caregiver crisis from a grassroots level, practical steps that everyone can take to ease the impact, and a little bit of the why behind these historical shortages and the impact that they're having on families in our own communities, neighborhoods, and schools. Welcome back to the Alethea Project. Caregiving is a cause very near and dear to my heart, as you can imagine, being that I have been in the caregiving business for the past 8 years or so. So this is both a national issue, but also a very personal issue for me. And while I'm not a full-time caregiver anymore and work more in a part-time capacity now, I still love to talk about all things caregiving. So first of all, there are very many different kinds of caregiving. You can be somebody who cares for a spouse or somebody who cares for a pet. Maybe you have a sibling or a child that you take care of, or maybe even a parent or a grandparent, depending on your stage of life. Or maybe you have chosen a caregiving profession. Maybe you're a case manager or a teacher, doctor, nurse, daycare worker, camp counselor. The list goes on and on and on. But today we're going to be talking about in-home health caregivers specifically, or PCAs, which is short for personal care assistants. So these are people who have chosen to go into the caregiving profession specifically as pertains to working with folks that have disabilities or sometimes working with the elderly population. It just kind of depends. I think a common misconception is that caregiving requires a special skill set or disposition. And while that might be true in some cases, it definitely wasn't for me. And honestly, I don't think it really is that way for most caregivers. A lot of us just kind of find ourselves in the profession. And this is very accurately represented through movies like The Upside or Silver Lining Playbook or films such as The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, The Fundamentals of Caring, films like that, where you have these phenomenal caregivers featured in each story. And they started out with almost no idea what they were doing, and it really turned into just a story that was life-changing for them. And I can definitely say that that was the case for me. I had never done a transfer, never navigated a shower chair, had never seen a Hoyer lift in my life. I had never had to chase an eloper or navigate a meltdown or go on a hunt for a very specific safe food. This is all things that you kind of learn as you go. I definitely didn't know how to drive an accessible car or help an adult use the bathroom. When caregiving first found me, I had absolutely no idea what I was getting into. And lucky for me, I got to work with the most amazing people. Wes, of course, as I've talked about on this podcast before, is my buddy with profound autism. And he quite literally taught me to speak his language one shift at a time. Candace and Sierra are two of my very good friends, and they taught me how to find joy even in the hardest moments because they live every day in bodies that don't always cooperate. And it can be frustrating and painful and discouraging at times. But their caregivers have such a unique position because we're able to see how day after day they choose joy in spite of their challenges. And honestly, I think I laugh more with them than I do with almost anybody else because they live every single day to the fullest, all while facing these challenges that many of us will never be able to fully comprehend. I also got to work with a woman named Sandy, and Sandy had SMA, spinal muscular atrophy, and the only part of her body that she was able to move was her thumb, just her thumb. She relied fully on all of her caregivers for every single aspect of life. But in spite of this, she had a college degree. She won a beauty pageant. She traveled the world, ran a successful business from her home, and was one of the smartest and sassiest people that I ever had the privilege to know. She provided us the opportunity to experience as caregivers what it's like to literally be someone's hands and feet. Because here's this woman who can only move her thumb, and yet she has lived a more productive, memorable, and meaningful life than many able-bodied adults that I know. She taught us as caregivers to live fearlessly. And like Candace and Sierra, she never took the little joys of life for granted. So, have you noticed a theme yet when it comes to working as a caregiver? It's really easy to think that the relationship between a healthcare worker and their client is more one sided or even transactional. But the reality is, it's anything but. Being an in home healthcare worker is not a job that requires you to give your everything all the time and take nothing in return. Can it sometimes be a little bit mind numbing to listen to a preferred 30-second Wiggles clip for hours or to wake up every 2 hours at night to turn someone? Yes, absolutely. And do you sometimes question your life decisions when you discover that you're terrible at steering a power chair and you take out an entire banana stand? Absolutely. Sorry, Candace. Caregiving, it does require a lot of you. But the people that I have had the privilege to work with have given me, as a caregiver, so much more than I could ever hope to give them in return. And that is not a unique experience. If you talk to anybody who's been in the caring profession, they're going to tell you similar stories. Because honestly, how many individuals are lucky enough to get to spend their day working with people who they adore being around? And how many of us are lucky enough to know that every single day, the effort and the presence that we put in at work is both appreciated and anticipated? Not many people get to say that. So yes, being an in-home healthcare worker can be hard, but you're going to learn what it means to love and to be loved absolutely unconditionally. And you're going to learn to choose joy in the face of great adversity. You'll learn how to stop being afraid of what other people think and how to never take life for granted. And for those of us who are believers, we get the opportunity to serve in the same capacity that Jesus himself did when he walked on the earth. Because that's really what it means to be a caregiver. We get to be the literal hands and feet. Now, let's pause here. And I want to address the little voice in the back of your mind that has probably been listening to all these stories and muttering, well, that's really nice for her, but I could never. And yes, you could. You really could be a caregiver. And even if you don't have the capacity to turn it into a full-time vocation, you can be that person who chooses to show up when the rest of the world turns away. And you can be the person who smiles at the adult in the wheelchair that you pass in the supermarket, or the one who invites the boy with autism to a birthday party. You can be the babysitter who gives the mom and dad a chance to take a break for a few hours, or maybe the volunteer who runs crafts in the Sunday school room so parents can enjoy a church service. You really don't have to overhaul your entire life to care. And this little voice that tells people that they're not capable enough or patient enough or experienced enough, that is going to be the hardest thing to overcome. Because at the end of the day, honestly, the most overwhelming part about filling a caregiving role, it's not the transfers, the feedings, or the messes, or the sleepless nights. For us, the most overwhelming part is we don't ever really know who's going to step up to take our place. So it's overwhelming, obviously, for the person who relies on the caregivers for independence, and for the siblings and parents, maybe they're aging parents and they can't take care of their children anymore physically. So for those who are already in that family dynamic, relying fully on caregivers, of course, it's going to be difficult for them when caregivers come and go. Like any profession, teaching, nursing, it does lead to rapid burnout. And there really is no support or means for caregivers to take a break. And as you can imagine, this takes a huge toll on the family, and it also takes a huge toll on the caregivers as well. My friend Sandy, for example, was older. She lived with her 80-year-old mother, and before Sandy passed away, she lived with the reality that if a caregiver did not show up for a shift, she didn't get out of bed or get to go to the bathroom or get to eat. She was on the lookout for new caregivers constantly. Nobody really wanted to fill the open positions that she had because the need was so intense. But imagine if more people had actually been willing to kind of step up and work as a team. People may be willing to just come for, one day a week or twice a month. Think a lot of hands helping a little bit. And that would have totally changed the game, right? So instead of rotating between, 4 to 6 exhausted caregivers, we could have had a team of, 30 to 40 women working together, each contributing what we could to help make sure that Sandy got out of bed every morning. And we would also get to have vacation and take sick days without feeling horribly guilty. And the crazy thing is, Sandy attended a church made up of 45,000 people. And she went to them asking for help and support more times than I could count. And do you want to know how many caregivers came from her church during the time that I was there? Not a single one. And this is why I say that even if you can't make a career out of being a caregiver, you can still find ways to care. Because right now, these healthcare workers are truly the ones in the trenches. They're right along with these families, but they're fighting a losing battle because there's really just not enough help to go around. And I know that makes the very idea of even stepping into caregiving feel terrifying because, how can you make a difference when the need is so great? It kind of feels like a dropper in the ocean, right? And I know that in a busy society like ours, the idea of adding one more thing to your plate might feel completely impossible. But you have to ask the question of, what if caregiving became less life or death? What if we had a lot of people helping out a little bit? Just like starting small. Become the person that shows up. And then you bring another person with you, and they bring another person with them, and they bring another person with them. And that is how we are going to make sustainable change. Just by focusing on families in our own vicinities, in our schools and in our neighborhoods and in our churches, from a grassroots level, right? From a community level. This is going to play a huge role in course correcting the caregiving crisis that we're seeing. Because it really has to start with you, with me, with us. It's going to take everybody using our own unique gifts and talents to make an impact in our own little corners of the world. So maybe you are able-bodied and you can help for a few hours every week working as a caregiver. Or, maybe you are extraordinarily gifted organizationally and you can rally volunteers to put on a respite event at your church or at your school for families in your area. Maybe you're well off and can afford to give financially to help families pay more for respite. The opportunities are endless, and so is the impact. Because truly, anybody can be a caregiver if they just take the time to care. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Alethea Project. If you liked, loved, or hated what you heard, please feel free to comment down below, like and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time.